I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphone over to our program, our very own Ed Ray and Duane Tabor, who are going to be telling us about earlier years in the Pasco Kiwanis Club and community.
Thank you. I'm going to just give you a little background, and I'll move back there where Duane is, and that's where we're going to be reviewing what you're going to see. But it's a very emotional thing. In other words, a lot of you are just starting in life, and he and I are phasing out. So it's sort of our legacy. And it, you know, you stop to think about it, all the people that you knew in the club and all of the history and everything. It's a very, very interesting thing. And I think that both of us, Duane and I, have got to know each other better over this. And remember, Duane was born in Pasco, and I was almost born here. Washtuckna is almost a suburb of Pasco, you know. But anyway, it's been most interesting doing this. And if we can sort of tell you that you're going to see from this that the Kiwanis Club of the past was very energetic in many things, and that's what we're going to try to show you here. So now then, I'm going to move back where Duane is and pray that we get through it, because as you get this age, you got something bouncing you. In my case, I got asthma. Duane, he's got a lot of things too, so just pray that the old guys get through it here. The people who have put this on, Chancellor here, who has been introduced, good CBC student, very good. He's packing 25 hours of credit, working full-time, and also helping on things like this. Outstanding. And of course, Ann. No, I'll do what I want here. So acknowledge Ann for all of the work she's done, too. And the City of Pasco. The City of Pasco now is taping this, and that's because of Al Yeni, our city councilman. And the theory is that hopefully we'll do a good enough job to where we can pass it on to their new members as they come in, because there's a lot of history here. So with that, I'll start reading my notes here. All right. Keep your eye on Pasco, its history, and the part Pasco Kiwanis played in it before and after Pearl Harbor, December 7, 41. Pearl Harbor and World War II were the catalyst for the explosive growth of our community, and our club was right in the middle of it. We are trying to preserve this for our future members, and that is why we are recording it. This all started when Rusty requested a program on Kiwanis history. We used as a basis our Kiwanis records, which were monthly reports meticulously prepared by the club secretary. These reports included attendance figures for each meeting and a list of the weekly programs and significant events. Okay, our club was founded in 1925.
That's the same year I was founded.
And together, Pasco and Pasco founded the Kennewick Club in 1927, and both clubs founded Richland Club. That Hotel Pasco there, I never saw it. Burned in 1939, but my wife remembered telling me about, used to go to the old Hotel Pasco, and that was on the corner of 4th and Lewis, on the northwest corner.
It burned on bank night at the Liberty Theater, and it emptied the theater. The show at the corner burning down was much better than Tom Mix.
Okay, our picture story starts in the 30s. We appreciate the Franklin County Historical Society providing these early pictures, but look at the Pasco lobby, Hotel Pasco lobby. All right. After the fire, the new Pasco Hotel was built between 5th and 6th on Lewis Street and still standing today as Seymour. Kiwanis met there for a number of years, And then they moved to the Lewis Hotel. But before we go off of the Hotel Pasco, my partner here used to work at the Hotel Pasco, so he can tell you a couple stories about that. Now, see, our Kiwanis met there at the coffee shop, and I had lunch there a couple times. But Duane, you can tell about you got a start in a career there, didn't you?
Yes, it was at this hotel that I decided I'd become a lawyer. I was a bellhop, worked for E.G. Kerfoot and his wife, and I got nothing but tips, and I got 10 cents a bag for tips in 1946 or 7 or 8 or something like that. But I had, in addition, a source of income to my tips when Ed Stewart, a black porter, worked at the hotel, and his wife, Dude, who those my age knew because she owned the largest and best bootleg outfit this side of Butte, Montana. And every once in a while, the chief got pressured to shut it down, so he'd go over and raid the place, and he'd take his seat at his favorite table at Dude's, while his officers confiscated their Christmas booze. But then he had to put somebody in jail. Well, Ed was married to Dude, so every 6 or 8 months, Ed went to jail for 30 days. And I took over selling the bootleg whiskey by the pint. And it was a thriving business. It worked out real well for me, and I enjoyed working at the Hotel Pasco. Now, Ed wants me to tell you another source.
Fortune teller. Tell him the one about the fortune teller.
Well, the hardest thing of this story is to make you believe it. Another source of income is one day afternoon, a gypsy walked through the front door into the lobby, dressed in nothing but a Pendleton blanket that smelled quite high and was very dirty. And I thought it'd take about 11 minutes for Mr. Kerfoot to kick her out. Well, it didn't happen. She got the best room in the entire hotel, and I took her 2 bags up, got my 20 cents. She said, well, sit down, son. And I thought, well, I don't want to see what's under that blanket. But anything for a tip. And so she said, listen, I do seances, and I have a list of clients here in Pasco that starting tomorrow night, for 2 nights, I put on seances. And you lived here all your life? I said, yeah. And he says, you know everybody? I said, I sure do. He says, here's a list of all of these women. And she says, you know them? I said, yeah, I know every one of them, including my mother. And she said, well, look, here's what I do. She said, you tell me everything you know about each of those families. Not who's sleeping with who, but everything else. And so I sat down. Hell, I knew everybody in town. They all knew me. And I gave her a whole background of every family that was on her list. And she said, okay, now you show up tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, the first seance. I said, well, I've already done my work. And she said, no, you're my ghost bell ringer. So I showed up at 8 o'clock, and it was about 7 o'clock, and she stuck me in the closet with a little bell. And she'd say, Jesse Tabor, that my mom's, you know, Jesse Tabor, can you hear me? Are you okay? Well, you know, it went over pretty damn good. So the next day she's checking out, and she owes me, and we're up settling it out, and she's pouring me, a high school student, a shot of whiskey out of the pint of bootleg whiskey I'd sold her. And after we got down a couple of snorts, why, she paid me off and gave me the best compliment I ever had, even as a judge. She said, "You're the best ghost I've got." That's how you made money in those days, folks. Go ahead.
Terrific. All right, now from the Hotel Pasco, we moved right there to the Lewis Hotel. And the Lewis Hotel is where that I joined Kiwanis. You went downstairs. I think we moved from the new Pasco Hotel because it wasn't big enough. The club was getting pretty big that time. I think about 80 or 90 people. And so you went downstairs there, and it's Whitney Real Estate. And the VFW Club was also in that building in the basement. So that's where I went in. And a lot of memories from that way. So, all right. Now, next slide. Now, this is on the first we have of a swimming pool, swimming in the river, obviously, because the Kiwanis did have a swimming hole down there. But I asked Bruce Whitemarsh about this one because this one is probably, this picture, thanks to the museum, probably about 1910, something like that. Look at the ladies' clothes and so forth. And that building up there was a change house for the women and fellows and all that. So that one was ahead of probably of the First World War. Now the next picture is the Kiwanis. That was a Kiwanis swimming pool. So all right, Duane, tell about that, because you swam in that, then you had an award on it.
Well, be that as it may, that had a 16-foot diving tower and an 8-foot level. And Pete Peterson, a prominent lawyer here in Pasco, was the sole lifeguard. And it was about 25 yards long. It was just surrounded by posts. And every kid that was worth his salt walked down there in the middle of July barefoot. Now, let me tell you, that takes a little doing. You jump into somebody's pool and then over to a lawn and then down on some newspaper, but you get down there because anybody wearing shoes was sent back home. It was a very nice beach, and we're going to put a plaque down there for us. Okay, Ed?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, the Kiwanis nominated you for the Carnegie Award for saving one of your neighbor boys from drowning. I thought that.
I didn't get any money for it. You screwed up, is what you did. I can hear you.
All right, I'll have to really talk loud, I guess. Okay, next slide. Pearl Harbor. Now, of course, this area, remember Pearl Harbor is just 2 days from now, December 7th. Can you get that? Keep going. Okay. And so we felt this program was just fit because commemorating Pearl Harbor, and this area took off because of Pearl Harbor. It's awful to think that we're based on something that was so bad, but because of Pearl Harbor, you had the Pasco Naval Station, you had Big Pasco, you had Hanford, and so you just have to realize when we celebrate, to acknowledge Pearl Harbor in a couple days, that this area changed because of that. Horrible. All right. Now this is the type of things that these are the minutes and the recording of attendance that the secretary would prepare. So we went through all those. And that's where some of them come. So this is where it started, war housing. Okay, let's keep going on those. That's just another picture of the devastation. Patton, Charles Patton. That was the first anniversary. See, the Kiwanis, they had the anniversary December 7th, 42. Charles Patton was the Methodist minister here in town. Here we go. All right. So now, Roy Skill, that was PP&L, local Army projects in 42. And then here you start on the Federal War Program, because our Kiwanis Club was right in the middle of all that. Had to be, didn't have any choice. Major Tufts, officer training, torpedoes. Just imagine that, living in that. You didn't know what, see, that's how we took this information. Now this one was interesting. The Kiwanis Club on May 18th of 42, they were entertaining 7 boys going in the Navy and leaving that evening. So our Kiwanis Club's always been in the middle of it. All right, here's the governor was over here helping soldiers after the war. And then, of course, the naval, Air Base Naval Station had to be about them. And that was a big thing, big thing. All right, here, in other words, winning the war at home, relations between Pasco and the Army Depot. Army Depot, who was one of the first officers there? That was Spence Gillette, and Spence is here today. Now, B.B. Horrigan, Bart Gallant's here, grandson. See, you had the war, but at the same time, you had the Kiwanis Club continuing to work on the things after the war. So the Columbia Basin Project that we just take for granted, that was a big deal. You had a lot of people working in that, including Bert Horrigan was one of the leaders, and he was talking and keeping our Kiwanis Club informed on it. All right, now this is an interesting thing here on this Colonel Cadillac. He was the assistant to Colonel Matthias, and Colonel Matthias was, got to catch up with my notes here. Colonel Matthias was the head person for citing Hanford. But listen to this on Colonel Cadillac. He was a deputy area engineer and chief of construction for the Army Corps of Engineers in Hanford. It is said he literally worked himself to death. He suffered a heart attack on July 2nd, 44, and subsequently died. His was the first death in the new Richland Hospital, and in July 44, the hospital was renamed Cadillac Hospital. We tried, see his name down there, Colonel H.R. Cadillac, he was a speaker there, March 22nd, 43. We tried to get a picture of him, but Chancellor worked and couldn't find it. I think it's terrible that we don't have a picture of him.
What do you expect from Richland?
All right, enough said. I'll go past that one. All right, now then the next one was we had war bonds, and okay, go on now. Now, this one again emphasizes the naval base out at Pasco and that big swimming pool. Now, Duane's going to tell you a story about that swimming pool that he was told about at the time. We don't know about it, but it was what he's told.
That swimming pool was absolutely huge. It was the largest indoor pool this side of Butte, Montana. You notice I know Butte rather well. They was fueled by the water was artesian, and they didn't have to pump any water into that pool. And Dalthorpe, Cliff Dalthorpe, father of Dave, came over here as a specialist A and ran the pool for the Navy's training. Lit fires on oil, and they had to swim in it, etc. And that pool stayed until after the war because many of us here swam in that pool. But for some reason known only to the city council of the city of Pasco, they closed it down. That's about it.
All right. War film by Standard Oil.
Oh, by the way, Al Yanni wasn't on that console.
Good. All right. Now here we have Rosie Richardson. He was one of our members, Flying Fortress gunner, and then Duane knew him pretty well. I did too, but Duane, he was a friend of your brother's, right?
Yeah, he was a friend of my brother's and a opponent of mine in the monthly poker club with Bud Brown, who ran the Housing Authority, Rosie Richardson, and myself, and Ernie Huber, and several others. We met, M. Morgan, by the way. We met at each of our houses once a month, and we shut the lights, or turned the lights off, and that signaled the end of the poker game, and the wives were assigned one duty, to bring in the apple pie at that time. And we really had fun. That poker club lasted about 20, 25 years. And I won most of my money there.
Okay. All right. Now here you get this life of our soldiers in Australia, and you can see. All right. Next one. Now here Bert Horrigan again and Ole Olson. Now Ole Olson was the father of Orville Olson, which is one of our good members, past lieutenant governor and all that stuff. But for money, because it was pretty serious stuff. And then at the bottom there, you saw Governor Langley, because he was also spoke at our Kiwanis club, and spoke on, I don't know, it was juvenile, there it is, juvenile delinquency, about the need of Christian unselfishness and everything for after the war. So our Kiwanis Club, it's two things we saw there. The governor's here talking to us. Pretty neat. Okay. Now here's Matthias. Now he was the one, of course, who was the point man for Hanford. And so they just put a bust of him, I think, up in Richland, up there by the federal building. But I think it's so interesting that there, what is it, January 15th, 45, he talked to our Kiwanis Club, and the Chamber of Commerce was apparently his sponsor. Pretty neat. All right, Lieutenant May, now that was a big name around Pasco, too. Now they're banquet for high school teams and bars and band. And, of course, Judge Horrigan again talked on Columbia Basin irrigation. He was tireless. And everything we've noticed, he's tireless on promoting that. There's Ole Olson again, Charles.
That's Ed Ray recruiting.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so now this Pearl Haven, we don't know if she was a local gal or not, but see, she was on the program. Said she lived there in that deal for the Japanese for 3 years. So much fascinating on this. Now here's a variety program from the Naval Air Station. And then now, what do we got here? Seamen on training and swimming and rescue work. Wendell Brown, see there? Wendell Brown was a very, very active Kiwanian. You just couldn't, he's in the minutes of most of the things, okay? Now we get past activities and accomplishments. Here we go. Now this, Ann discovered what this was all about. And Duane, you can tell me and tell us what she discovered about what that was at Edgar Brown.
Well, we had a heck of a discussion. You can move it along to the ice capades. We, the Kiwanis Club of Pasco, brought the first ice capades to Pasco. And we held it at Edgar Brown Memorial Stadium. There are the lovely girls ice skating. That rink was put up about July the 12th here in Pasco, out in the open. And they had freezing pipes underneath. And they brought this professional skating group in on the 50-yard line, and the Kiwanis Club sponsored them, sold tickets, and broke even. But, which is more than I can say about some of our projects. But that's an exciting time. Can you imagine the ice follies brought here by Pasco? Also, the water follies that Ed will refer to was brought here by Pasco. Go ahead.
All right. All right, now these are Kiwanians. These are past lieutenant governors. which Socrates Lee Bonnet, he was the mayor of Pasco and lieutenant governor for Kiwanis. Jim Barbalitas was the manager for Tidewater Barge Lines. And then Ed Hindler, they called himself the Mad Turk. So they were on some kind of a program. But Hindler was a past lieutenant governor. And of course, the bridge is named after him and everything else. Now, we're about to show you about Edgar Brown Memorial Stadium that you just can't believe what you're going to see here. But that's all right. This is where they started talking about it. And 40,000 seats, and no way, because we found out, Ann tells me that probably 6,000 to 7,000 is about the most. But anyway, now that's where it started. Now just think of that. Just think of that. Now, Duane's going to tell you the story of what those kids did, I suppose, on that picture. All right, Duane, tell them on that one.
Well, see, Edgar Brown had the obligation to fill that pit. And then rather than doing that, he found a dumb school board and gave it to him. And that hasn't changed. In any event, we had a lot of fun in that stadium long before it was a football field. They had a chain or a cable that ran from Sylvester, down north and south. They went north, clear to the other end where the dressing room was, and a bucket was on the end of it, and they'd drop that bucket, get the material, pull it up and dump it into a truck at this end. Well, it was closed, so we kids bent bars, and if you had any courage or were dumb enough, you put the bar over that cable and you swang clear down, starting about 60 feet over the ground, all the way down to the dressing rooms. It was quite a thrill.
When you look at Sylvester now, I think Sylvester was just gravel at that time. Doesn't look like it's paved. But when you look at it, it's just unbelievable how our community has grown past that. And to think that Kiwanis was involved in this development. Now here's after it's pretty well complete, and then it shows the Blue Bridge in the background. We were told, somebody was trying to say that the Blue Bridge was built by excavation from Edgar Brown. No way, no way. But that is a fantastic picture there. All right, now, this is interesting. Things don't change. I don't think, Spence, did you ever see your dad's picture on that one? I thought that was so neat. Look, the people that were involved in. Spence was for mayor, George Grant. Charlie Knapp was a business agent for the laborers. Ralph Ecker, Empire Electric. Ray Sutherland was cement finishers. And city attorney, Dick Patrick. Friends of all of us. So interesting, great. Great. All right, one other thing we should say is that the Pasco Kiwanis Club did other things. Like foundation, we're going to give scholarships. Years ago, they were giving, our club then was giving scholarships. The scholarships were $100. Isn't that interesting? Now, that doesn't go very far. And one of the things they did to do this was they had a meeting and they put gumball machines in every business. Now, to raise money for the scholarships. But it's just what our club has done in the past, and the history there is unbelievable. So Pasco Kiwanis has historically been an active advocate for our community, especially for our youth, and numerous community projects. All of you who are involved in these activities should take great pride in making Pasco such a great place to live. Keep your eye on Pasco and the Pasco Kiwanis. Thank you.
Great. Go ahead.
Well, Ed said that we should remind you that this just gets us through the war, and we need somebody dumb enough to volunteer. And Ed and I will both help you, but you better hurry if you want my help, either one of our help. Like I said at the pavilion dedication, I had one advantage over those who gave more to the Kiwanis. I was going to go first, and that may happen. But we need some help, because this is, I think, Ed put together with, what's that kid's name?
Chancellor, stand up, Chancellor.
Stand up. This. Yeah. Now, let me tell you, this kid is brilliant. He could take that and make it a Richland display in 11 minutes. And he graduates this June in about 12 things, carrying 25 hours. And if you're looking for an employee, you're dumb to pass him up. Thanks, kid.
I want to thank you and the club for allowing me to take part in doing this. It's very interesting to see the history add up with not only Pasco and the Pasco Chamber of Commerce, whatever we're calling it. Yeah, everything's adding up. I see this history, especially with World War II and the Kiwanians helping out the community, just come together and build these amazing things. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
My man.